What if all the plastic around the world could be turned into currency? And what if there was a system quite like the carbon emission one to calculate your plastic consumption and compensate for it by getting to a plastic net zero and investing in plastic recycling initiative and in art? Today we will talk with André, who is working exactly on these possible scenarios and has created a marketplace for plastic recycling and to turn plastic into a currency with blockchain technology and a pinch of NFT. Are you a bit lost? Don't be, and follow us to discover the PLASTIKS Initiative. Sustainability at Work is a podcast about sustainability in the workplace and in companies. My name is Samara and I've been working with sustainability for almost 10 years. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sustainability at Work and welcome, André. How are you?
Good morning, Samara. Good morning. Very well, thank you. Very grateful to have the opportunity to chat with you this morning.
I'm very grateful too. Today we are going to talk about big stuff, I would say, very interesting things and topics, not only plastic, but more than that, technology and blockchain and how to use it in the future. So I want to dive directly into this. So let's talk about the big picture first. When you go to Nozama website, you see Nozama measure your sustainability. So how do we measure sustainability? I know it's a big question and it's one of the challenging questions of sustainability, but how do we measure sustainability? How do you measure sustainability and how this has changed in these latest years?
The interesting aspect of measuring sustainability is obviously being able to assign to a product and a service its environmental impact. And environmental impact can be summarized by two basic building blocks, one of them being carbon emissions, and the other one being packaging impact, basically the type of plastics that you're using to be able to sell your products. So measuring sustainability essentially boils down to being able to say how much CO2 emitted has been created by delivering your product, and how much single-use packaging plastic was used to deliver your product. If you are able to assign these two values to a product, you've essentially measured the basic building block of the environmental footprint of consumption. So from Nozama's perspective, it was measuring CO2 emissions from the distribution channel up to the end consumer, CO2 emitted and offsetted, and CO2 saved. Number two, measuring the single-use packaging plastics recovered from the end consumer up to the recycler, kilograms of plastics recovered, kilograms of plastics recycled. And by putting these two together, having an environmental footprint that companies could use either to prove their commitment to the environment by stating this is how they've reduced them, or create incentivization programs with their end consumers on the basis of individual consumer environmental footprints. So these are the two basic building blocks of what it is to measure sustainability.
And how has that changed with new technologies in the latest years? What are the most promising ones? What do you use?
Well, I think it's important to understand that when Nozama was founded in 2019, it was founded as a software as a service. And as a software as a service, it is a business model issue that essentially says you want to be transparent, you want to measure your environmental footprint, you acquire our software, and you will be able to do so. Summer of 2021 was when we had been confronted with the reality. What is the reality? The people say they want to save the world, but nobody wants to pay for it. This is a reality. Unfortunately, this is a reality. So it is not a technological problem. It is a business model problem. And our response to that was, well, let's take advantage of this enormous penetration of NFTs in society, which 3 years ago did not exist. And let's combine the power of an NFT with traceability into a business model that can basically encourage transparency, encourage traceability by rewarding companies with revenue. So ultimately, we decided to focus on the waste management industry, which had not changed in 50 years, and state, okay, waste management is making money two ways. Number one, by collecting waste. And they collect this waste through municipal governments, through city governments, private entities. And the second one is what you call sorting or revaluation, which is identifying what type of wastes are useful as a feedstock or prime resource so that they can be sold to recycling companies to be used as the resource for creating new packaging with recovered materials. In this activity, we said, well, if you're selling it, that means that you have it. If you have it, that means that it's not in the environment. So we decided to create a new product called a recovery guarantee. And the recovery guarantee is essentially an invoice from a waste management company that is converted into an NFT so that this can be viewed on the blockchain by whoever acquires this NFT and can know and verify on such a date, a certain amount and a certain type of plastic has been recovered and has not ended up in the environment. This is the instrument. This is the innovation. This is ultimately the product, which is a recovery guarantee.
I don't want to lose anybody on this great explanation, but what is an NFT and what is blockchain? Can you give us a little short explanation of those?
Very good question, Samara, and I'm very grateful that you brought us on a common denominator. Let's start with blockchain. The best way to explain what blockchain is to take an example. Person A is sending money to person B through the banking system. Basically, the bank, all they're doing is accounting. They're basically saying person A has X amount and person B has Y amount. Now, when person A has sent money to person B, person A no longer has the amount of money that they've sent, and person B now has more money that they had before. This accounting is basically what the bank does. Blockchain is a mathematical algorithm that allows the ability to register that transaction without needing a third party. The third party being the bank. In the case of blockchain, it's basically person A sends money to person B. On the blockchain, you have person A having sent money to. On the blockchain, you have person B having received money from. And on the blockchain, you have the new balances. Person A has a new balance and person B has a new balance. That's what blockchain is. No more, no less. An NFT basically is a digital right of ownership on a digital asset. If, again, by example, you take a famous celebrity who decides to take a picture and they say, I'm going to assign the rights of ownership to this picture, they essentially are going to create a non-fungible token, which is the NFT meaning, and they're going to say the owner of this picture is this non-fungible token. Now, nothing and no one is to prevent from copying or reproducing this picture across the internet or across the metaverse or across social media. However, the ownership is unique. The ownership is unique. So an NFT is a unique right of ownership on a digital asset. If you combine that with the waste management industry, you can tell an invoice is a unique guarantee that a unique amount of plastic and a unique type of plastic has been recovered and has not gone into the environment. That is how those are tied together.
Okay, great explanation. Thank you so much. So now I understand also the previous part, which you are using these two technologies applied to plastics so that you can really trace plastic, which was not possible before. Before it was a mass balance maybe of how much plastic was recovered and how much was not. But now you are really able to trace it back to the details.
Well, before nobody knew. As a consumer, you did not know what was going on. And the only access you had to plastics being recovered was ultimately a balance sheet or a yearly declaration that a company would publish and share with you. And then you would have to actually go and find this and read it. Now, most likely, you're not an accountant. So not being an accountant, you wouldn't have an emotional relationship with this information on a balance sheet. So it would be completely irrelevant to you. The fact that Coca-Cola has a report that states that they've done all these waste reduction projects is not going to make you choose to drink Coca-Cola. That's a fact. So ultimately, having an NFT with a component, a visual component, a verification component, and having Coca-Cola show you that they own this allows you visually to see they are committed to the environment. They have recovered X amount. They are really truly doing what they say they're doing. And I feel, now I know that I can trust them in terms of their commitment.
Mm-hmm. So who are your customers and what they do with the data you provide?
Well, we have actually 4 different personas, 4 different types of customers. The main customer, obviously, are waste management companies across the world that mint NFTs from the invoices that they're generating during the course of their activity. So we've got companies in Africa, in Latin America, in Europe, in North America, in Australia. And essentially what they do is that they're taking the invoices and they're converting them into NFTs. Number 2, artists. Artists across the world are putting up their art on the marketplace and putting it up for sale by conditioning the acquisition of this art by the amount of recovery guarantees that the buyer would have to acquire. Ultimately, you're an artist, you want to make more money by being part of the waste reduction process, by fighting climate change, and you put your art up on the plastics marketplace, and you say, if you want to buy my art, you need to make sure that you've acquired X amount of kilos or X amount of tons of plastic from a geography or in general. And then you will have the right to buy my art. So ultimately, by doing it this way, you are encouraging people to invest in waste reduction and ultimately take out or incentivize taking out plastic from the environment. Number 3, the buyers. You have the buyers, which are companies that either produce, consume, or distribute plastics. And they want to acquire these NFTs essentially to do 3 things. Number 1, to be able to offset their plastic production, usage, or distribution. If a company is using 100 tons of polypropylene and they buy 100 tons of NFTs of polypropylene, essentially what they're saying is that I am not contributing to putting polypropylene into the environment. I've essentially neutralized my polypropylene impact. Number 2, they want to be able to communicate this to their consumers, that they're committed to the environment. And what are they communicating? They're communicating that they've acquired an NFT from a waste management company in a certain area, for example, in a developing nation. And in this acquisition, they're essentially saying, 1, I'm encouraging this waste management company in this developing nation to be more transparent, basically to upload their invoices so that people will know what they're doing. And number 2, since this is a new revenue stream, I am basically forcing upon them a portion of that new revenue to go into the hands of the waste pickers who are in the streets living on very low wages to get more money from doing what? Collecting more waste and bringing it to the waste management. So essentially, I'm having a direct social impact. And then number 3, in terms of the reason why these consumer brands would buy this, they buy this because they want a marketing tool where they want to incentivize their consumers in terms of commitments, in terms of engagement towards the brand by rewarding them with these NFTs or by basically encourage them to do certain activities in exchange of obtaining these NFTs. So it's a marketing tool. So ultimately, these are the reasons why consumer brands would buy it. And then fourthly, the 4th persona are people and consumers. Plastics essentially is like LinkedIn. It's like Facebook, where everybody can create their own profile page for free. And then you can basically show your commitment to the environment. You can acquire NFTs from all over the world related to all types of plastics. And you can showcase that you're committed to helping reduce waste into the environment. And you can promote this on your social media. You can promote this in the metaverse or in any other environment. And most importantly, you can create your own profile as a sustainable person. And the future is ultimately going to be rewarding people who show they're committed to the environment. And companies will want to say, can you prove? People who look for jobs will probably be asked, how are you towards the environment? Can you prove? And then obviously you go to Plastiks Marketplace, you type in your user ID, and then you have your dashboard of all the NFTs that you've acquired, all the different areas in the world that you've helped reduce plastic in the environment. And this is going to be a digital signature. So those are the 4 customers that we have.
That's amazing. It's really amazing. But I have to say that you mentioned a word, which is plastics, that we haven't talked about. So what are the relationships between Plastiks with K and Nozama?
Well, Nozama was founded in early 2019 with the objective of being the world's largest sustainability technology company. And that meant essentially doing what I've alluded to earlier, measuring CO2 emissions across the distribution channel and measuring single-use packaging plastics recovered from the end consumer up to the recycler. This was in a SaaS model. By 2021, we realized, as I had also mentioned, that the world says that they want, people want to save the world, but nobody wants to pay for it. So basically, we decided to create Plastiks as a marketplace to allow waste management companies to earn money, to earn income by becoming more transparent and by converting their invoices into NFTs. So Plastiks is a product of Nozama, leveraging all the experience Nozama has in sustainability technology, and it is meant to be able to serve the need of providing transparency and traceability within the context of a marketplace business model.
Are there other partners involved into Plastiks, and also which are the countries where you operate?
Well, in terms of the countries where we operate in Ivory Coast, in Senegal, in Kenya, Argentina, Mexico, Costa Rica, Colombia, Australia, Spain, North America, specifically California and Washington, and growing. Our major partner is Silo Blockchain. Silo Blockchain is the world's largest and first carbon neutral blockchain, which essentially provides a carbon offsetting function for every blockchain transaction. They have more than 2.5 million users across, or holders across the world. And the second reason we decide to partner with Silo is because they have the mobile access to the blockchain, and that allows for people in developing nations to be able to benefit from crypto without having to have all the roadblocks that are required to get into the world of crypto. However, in Latin America and in Africa, for example, the use of mobile phone is extensive, and Silo has pioneered and mastered access to crypto through mobile phone. And so for these 2 reasons, we had decided to become strategic partners of Silo and be part of their ecosystem. This is our largest partnership and the one we're most proud of.
So when you say you operate in these countries, it's that you operate in one of the 4 personas you were talking about, right?
Correct.
Okay. And going back to the idea of the blockchain and the database of that, is there any issue for the amount of energy, which is something that we heard a lot about against the blockchain and the use of energy for mining? I also heard the latest article that we're talking about the developer trying to solve the problem just with some development in the code. They were able to lower a lot the footprint of mining for blockchain. Is that an issue or no?
Well, from a technical perspective, blockchain was created on what we call a proof of work protocol, which is essentially a protocol that states that you need to calculate a result to a mathematical problem. And the first one to resolve this mathematical problem is the one that is awarded a reward and is the one that actually validates a transaction. By doing this is clearly a direct impact on energy, because calculation is processing power. And the more energy you have, the more processing power you have. And ultimately, this is the ability that this is the cause of such a large energy consumption. Bitcoin and Ethereum being the ones that are the most relevant in this. Technologically speaking, the big improvement has been proof of stake over the last few years. This is nothing new, but the world obviously is going towards proof of stake, which essentially is also a mathematical problem, But the mathematical problem is solved by the entity that puts the most amount of money at stake. So basically, if you're solving the problem and you put $1 million at stake that says, if I have not solved this problem correctly, I will lose my $1 million. That solution is the one that is awarded for a calculation. And ultimately, this has allowed to have a major reduction in energy consumption. Nevertheless, there is energy consumption. And so the next step is to make sure they're carbon offsetted whilst energy becomes renewable, whilst the world goes towards renewable energy. So to make sure that any blockchain-based transaction is not proactively adding carbon to the environment. And that's where we decide to partner with CELO blockchain, because we know for a fact that every transaction is offsetted from a carbon neutrality perspective. So as a result, these are the methods that are being used to be able to be as environmentally friendly as possible, whilst the world evolves towards green energy.
I have to say that I have so many connections into my brain now of this technology and how it can be applied. I think it's wonderful. I don't know if we are looking at a future where we can use this idea of technology, actually it's more technology together, but to use plastic credits as a form of money to buy things, or is that too far? My brain is...
No, not at all. Well, as a matter of fact, plastic was created, the token, to be able to allow the 4 personas to transact on the PLASTIKS marketplace. So plastic is a token that is a currency that is bought and sold freely on currently 2 exchanges, Bitmark and LBank. And ultimately, the world, if they want to be able to deal with plastic credits, need to use plastic. Okay. And we have connected plastic as the underlying token of the marketplace. We have bridged plastic with CELO so that plastic can interoperate with CELO blockchain to capture that carbon neutrality. But our goal is definitely everybody to have access to the marketplace will need to have plastic. And so paying in plastic is definitely one of the options that are out there in the world. Currently, you can hold plastic, you can convert plastic to the crypto of your choice, and then of course you can convert the crypto of your choice to fiat, euros, pounds, or dollars. But plastic is the underlying currency of the plastics marketplace.
Amazing. So you created a marketplace for everything concerning plastic that wants to keep plastic in the flow and wants to trace where plastic goes and to reward when plastic is reused. Is there a summary? It's quite right. And then plastic can also be a currency that can be used at the moment in this marketplace, but in the future, who knows, to do other things.
That's correct, Samara.
Amazing. Really.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how do you see the future of sustainability, especially in this area? And how do you see the future of Nozama expanding?
Well, from an overall vision, if 100% of plastic production globally is accounted for, we can literally make sure that there is no plastic in the environment. What does that mean? 100% of the world's plastic production should have a name and a last name. Every company, every government, every end consumer should know that 100% of plastic production is accounted for. This is the ultimate goal, the ultimate goal. So where do we see plastics and Nozama? We see plastics and Nozama as the world reference in plastic credit. We see Nozama and plastics as the world reference in allowing waste management companies to create these NFTs and to allow the consumers, the consumer brands, and the artists to be able to know which plastic and what quantity has been recovered worldwide, and to have a seamless and frictionless experience in terms of making sure that plastics are recovered. That is where we see ourselves. And that work is currently is underway across the world, where we are actively engaged in those markets where we've talked about. And ultimately, what we really do want is to have more institutional relationships to help validate that basically blockchain is the preferred tool for plastic credits, so that there is no doubt about the authenticity of the data.
If I look at the carbon market, which is maybe more advanced or more expanded, why really stop at companies? We should also look at countries. Countries should have plastic credits, no?
Absolutely agree, but we actually take it a side step further. We think people should have profiles. If you look at Facebook or Instagram, you're looking at basically your digital manifestation. We think that people should have accountability in terms of their plastic consumption from a yearly perspective, and be accountable for that and offset them. So if as a home I'm using 1 ton of plastic, I should be able to account for that and have 1 ton of offsetting for that plastic. So I know my home is contributing to waste reduction in the environment. So we're taking it more from a non-government approach, but more of a corporate / end consumer approach. So ultimately, the future is a Facebook, i.e. a plastics profile, will show what is your commitment as an individual to the planet, and are you a plastic neutral and eventually carbon neutral person.
Very interesting. Thank you so much, André, for this interview. Our time is getting to an end, but I wanted to ask you a more personal question, because sustainability and all these topics are very complicated. They take time to develop. So what brings you optimism? Where do you recharge your batteries when you need to see things more optimistically and recharge?
Very good question, Samara. Very much grateful for that question. Ultimately, the answer comes from the question of what can we do as consumers to help save the planet? Because literally, saving the planet is only a luxury of the wealthy. Conservatorship is a concern of the wealthy. For the vast majority, survival is the key. Survival is the governing driver behind this. So if survival is the governing driver behind this, how can you reconcile the need to save the planet with survivability? And ultimately, we all know that we wake up in the morning and we are bombarded and exposed to what's going on in the world. Our hearts say we want to help change it, and then we go to work. By midday, we're reminded of all the world of which we live in, the bills, the problems, the relationships, so on and so forth. We get home at the end of the day, we have to prepare dinner, we have to pay the mortgage, the education bills, and then we finish dinner, we wash the dishes, we go down into the street, and then we have to put the waste in the right bin if we live in Europe. And then we ask ourselves the question, is it worth it? And then whether we have an answer or not, we do it anyway, we just don't care because we're exhausted. So how are you going to make those profiles really save the world? The key to that problem is ultimately having companies be responsible for the products and services that they're selling them. So that person, that persona, that profile, all they need to do is choose wisely. And choosing wisely means I will reward with my money a company that has proven their commitment to the environment. And that is the extent of what I can do to help save the world, nothing else. And so that is what keeps me up at night. That is what keeps me moving. That is what keeps me getting things done, to build basically a system, an ecosystem, which is plastics, and it's the original Nozama, to allow that to happen. So basically, you cannot disappear and say, I'm not going to consume anymore. What you need to do is consume responsibly. And consuming responsibly means measuring the impact of your consumption and having companies reward you for your choice. That is what actually drives me behind this intellectual response to this problem.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. I think it's a great note to end the interview. Thank you so much, André. I really wish you a lot of luck with all the project, and I hope to see it expanding because it's very interesting. It has a great potential. And so thank you so much. And thank you everybody for listening. And I see you in 2 weeks' time. Goodbye.
Thank you, Samara, for the opportunity to have been interviewed. I wish everybody a good day, good evening, and good night.